Okay, we are at the day 3 out of 3 of this webinar. Okay, let's wait for everyone to really adjust, and we start immediately with the presentation for the agenda for today. Let me go straight to my screen now so I can share it with you. So today obviously is the last day. We're gonna go through some of the subject that we've gone through in the first 2 days. Okay, let's start with the mission. The mission is really to help entrepreneurs to achieve peak valuation without guesswork. And it's really, to provide this with this recipe for success that's been going on since 2017. And I'm going to show you earlier on really exactly what we've spoken about in the first 1 or 2 days. Okay, so now let's go straight into the agenda for day 3. First, we're going to have a recap from day 1 and 2. It's going to last about 10 minutes. Potentially, you can have some Q&A from the first 2 days. Then the 3 problems to solve in 5 minutes, effectively. So what are the 3 problems that we're trying to solve with this recipe for success, which is the global growth blueprint? Yeah. And then 3 steps to solve the problems, again in 5 minutes. Yeah. So there are 3 problems, and then how do we solve it in 3 steps? The 3 problems, we solve it in 3 steps, effectively. Step 1 is going to take 10 minutes. Step 2 is going to be 10 minutes again. Step 3, roughly 10 minutes. All these steps, effectively, they are the 3-step roadmap to achieve success with your business. Yeah. And then a Q&A and close, it's going to be 5 minutes, or it's going to be longer. Okay, let's now go back to the initial presentation about the global growth blueprint. As I was saying to you, this is well beyond finance. Our mission is really a declaration of war against business failure. So the ecosystem includes, for example, also an organization that works very closely with me to help me and help other businesses to do better closing. We know that many businesses fail because they fail on the top line, they don't sell, or they don't close enough. And that's something that we want to eradicate as well with more education. According to a recent survey, 52% of the businesses have said they cannot close as well as they would like to. As to DD Consulting, this is an M&A boutique with which I'm working. I am a partner, associate partner, and I deal with scale up and exit with them. Okay, let's see what they've done in the past, DD Consulting. So effectively, when you work with me, you've also got DD Consulting next to you. And as you can see, there have been special situations. So many large organizations like Unilever, Marks and Spencer, Marconi, Ericsson, there are so many, Channel 4, Viacom, HSBC, Cushman & Wakefield, BP, so many big organizations. So rest assured, when you work with me effectively, you can avail yourself of the biggest experiences we have in the world when it comes to M&A. This has been going on for more than 20 years, so I just became a partner in the last few months. Let's go back to failure, okay? On the first day, we observed how the survival rate of businesses from the moment they start really goes all the way from 80%. So effectively, the first year, already 20% of the businesses will fail, down to 35%, as we can see after 10 years. Now, that's obviously quite a damning situation. The figures are very similar across the world, so there's not really too much of a chance really to spot any differentiation from country to country. So it's a real issue. Too many businesses fail. We also mentioned that in the world currently, there are $105 trillion of GDP. So what's the GDP? The GDP is the gross domestic product, is the sum of all the products generated in the world by all the businesses. So you are in this webinar because you're part of this, you're generating GDP. And the question we pose on the first day is, well, if the world is capable of doing $105 trillion in 1 year without education, what would happen if we had more education about this? So this is, this is an amazing fact that, we can see that the problem we are trying to solve is worth trillions. Let us not forget that 10% of the GDP every year is lost due to business failures. Now, some people will argue, rightly, that some of these losses are really physiological, which is absolutely true. However, how many of those $10 trillion we could actually take care of with more education? Again, as you can see, the problem is at least 13 digits, So we're talking about a real big problem in any case. So we're talking about trillions, really. So that's why this program exists. Let's go back to the history about this program. It started in 2017 with a partnership created with the University of Plymouth. That was the first pilot. As you can see, there's me in the picture with students who came out of university to start their first business. Then in 2018, 2020, the program was successfully offered to entrepreneurs face-to-face. Then COVID effectively stopped it until 2024, in which the program was recorded online to really provide more accessibility, to make it a lot more useful to be watched, to be offered across the world, really. Okay. So now the program is available online. What were the 3 key problems we were trying to solve? First one is high business rate of failure. Second, insufficient knowledge of intellectual property monetization. Big problem because there's so much wealth that can be created. And number 3, insufficient knowledge about valuation strategies, which really impairs entrepreneurs when it comes to dealing with investors. So what's the solution? The solution is a 3-step program, which we're going to look at today, to create more wealth with high valuation strategies. So we're talking about high valuation strategies. So we are not talking about lifestyle businesses here, okay? So we're talking about ambitious entrepreneurs who want to really level up with investors. 5 phases we mentioned on Monday. Let's start with the first phase, which is startup. Now, the startup is where we don't have any revenue effectively, but we go 3 phases in which the business will get to commercial stage before getting to commercial stage. So the first phase is the concept, where basically it's the idea. The idea is then validated and becomes a development. And then from development, we come to deployment, okay? So first, the idea is validated. Only then, we try and approach an investor. And after that, we go development, which is effectively the prototyping, which then becomes the real science, the real thing on deployment, okay? So we analyzed the various reasons why there are startup failures. And we've seen various reasons for that. And sometimes it's really poor planning, no market fit, running out of cash, because investors probably are not attracted to the business. This model is not strong enough. Sometimes, there's no marketing study enough. There's no study of supply and demand, so that's actually quite telling when we see really what the issue is. Lack of differentiation, sometimes just one product, one customer, or maybe just a few customers, not too many. So that's phase 1, startup failure. What about phase 2, scale-up failures? Very painful. Why is it painful? Because the startup phase is when it's completed, the product has been accepted by the market. So as a result of that, the business should now be gearing up to really execute well. But execution is what is missing here. So you can see that there's no discipline, they're scaling too fast, There could be operational issue where the business doesn't work very well. It's not very well structured to really do well. The cash flow crisis, of course, hiring mistakes in both directions, sometimes hiring too fast, sometimes not hiring at all, who should be hired because the owners could be control obsessed. Poor market expansion strategy as well. So expand too fast, too slow. Those are issues, really. So what's the result? What does it look like? The blue line is the sales. The orange line is the cash flow. Somehow, the business is generating higher sales, but is not generating cash flow, which is obviously a big problem because, as we can see, not generating cash flow can obviously impair a business. And this can be due to loss of margin, no cost control. Say, for example, if you are a business that does 10% net profit and 20% margin, and the margin that dropped by 5%, suddenly the profits is cut in half. Then we go scale up good. A scale up good is when the cash flow will follow the sales. So we have this discipline about what happens with margin, what happens with cost, what happens with funding with the business, with the capital requirement of the business. Yeah. Stagnation. Stagnation is the silent killer. That's where effectively the business falls asleep. There's market saturation. There's the leadership is tired, maybe not strong enough. There's loss of competitive edge, low investor interest, and both profit financial margin. So we can see here that the cash flow does not respond at all. The sales are not growing in any case. And so that's what causes stagnation. And most of the time that can morph into a crisis. So what's a crisis? A crisis is when the sales are falling and the cash flow is also falling. Why does it happen? It could be because the business is really imbalanced when it comes to capital. It could have a debt reliance. The founders are burning out. There could be legal compliance issues. There's too much cash burn, exceeding revenue. Phase 5, exit. Now, normally exit, they fell a lot. I met with one business a few weeks ago where they did no preparation at all. And clearly, no preparation means no exit, because you need to expect really to prepare a business for a buyer. So first we come preparation, then negotiation, then execution effectively. So what we have here is a situation in which the business is scaling. So rising sales, rising cash flow. So you need to prepare before you sell it by scaling it further, but preparing also for later, because when the buyer will be effectively buying the business, they'll be expecting to also grow further than the previous 5 years. So you need to plan for 10 years effectively. So you can't just really exit without preparation and expect to have success. That's really like a lottery. Then on day 2, we discussed about the so-called Bluechip blueprint, where we analyzed the reason why the big business becomes bigger, because they know what to do with their intellectual property monetization. For example, we saw McDonald's, who's very well known for franchising, but McDonald's is also doing other form of intellectual property monetization. For example, joint ventures. And that is really, that bodes very, very well for the business because it's able to adapt to the market. So don't forget, franchising is the most complex way of monetizing IP, while joint venture is the simplest. So effectively what we have is intellectual property monetization done in different ways in different markets, which is really telling about the quality of the business. We went for Gillette. Gillette is another example where distribution were organized overseas. There were lots and lots of deals done. to expand in new markets without needing to invest so much in new markets because you're reaching out to distributors as well. Coca-Cola bottling is where we see joint venture. Coca-Cola, instead of really going overseas and starting over again with a new activity, with a new entity, they would go straight into a partnership with the bottling company so that they could actually operate overseas. And Nike is an example of lots of distribution, lots of intellectual property monetization, royalty selling, and so on. For example, big relationship with a big chain like Foot Locker, for example. Yeah, that's what happens with Nike. Yeah. So we went to extend into so many other examples, like Microsoft and Intel, for example, which we call Wintel because it's a winning strategy, which has dominated the PC market. And with that strategy, we see now Microsoft and Intel, they work together to really deliver a unique product because no one else could beat Microsoft and Intel. When they are together, they're obviously very difficult to beat. Yeah, probably that's the reason why Apple for so many years was behind Microsoft as well. And then we saw Apple as well, the strategy of the developer, where the developers, they work with Apple, Apple pays the developer, but there's always like a joint venture element where they all gain. And for each transaction, Apple will just make money all the time. We saw BMW and Toyota working together for the joint venture for the clean energy vehicle. We saw Lego, the toy business, toy making business, coming up with the joint venture, obviously with the royalty agreement with Star Wars and with Harry Potter. So what does this tell us? This tells us really that businesses, they have so many different ways to monetize their intellectual property, but that's the reason why a big business gets bigger and bigger, okay? So that's how they do it, through intellectual property monetization. And that's why it's a big opportunity for our economy. So what did I do? Because we have 121 participants to this webinar, I studied them a few days before the webinar and tried to play this game, behaving like blue chip companies. And we came up with 10 potential joint venture, again, or either type of partnership, not necessarily joint venture. So see how many deal type we had. We had one strategic partnership here. Then we had a service exchange, educational collaboration, marketing collaboration, supply chain partnership, business advisory partnership, digital marketing and lead generation, content and talent collaboration, AI-driven sales strategies, creative branding and partnership. There are so many ways really to really establish a strong really force, a strong presence, and to monetize the intellectual property. So the three problems to solve, okay? What are they? Well, the first one is rate of failure for too many businesses. Now, you will be really, really surprised if I tell you that most failure do not happen during recession. They happen after recession. Think about this. A business that in recession has been effectively trying to survive, as soon as the recession is over, they have so many orders because suddenly the business wake up and they just do not have the funding to deal with these orders. And very sadly, when they are supposed to thrive, they actually fail. And that's something that unfortunately brings to mind the fact that financial intelligence is so important for businesses. When a profitable scale up or a business that is profitable during that period fails, it's not just an economic problem, it's a social problem because there are losses of jobs, there is loss of innovation, there are loss of products, lower GDP, as we've seen before. So the rate of failure is something that should really concern us all, yeah? We should all be concerned about this because it's just a lot more than just economic issue. What's the second problem to solve? Insufficient knowledge about intellectual property monetization. Just think about this. The USA has 9 million jobs dedicated to the franchising industry. A country like the UK, 200,000. Okay. Now, on average, the money spent on franchising in USA is $4,000 per person. In the UK, it's 200, 20 times less, effectively. Yeah. Now, franchising is obviously the most sophisticated way of monetizing IP. But let's just think about how much more the USA does compared to other countries like the UK in other type of intellectual property monetization. So this is a really big issue. And again, intellectual property monetization is not about reading a book and learning it. Each situation is unique. And we will not find the answer through ChatGPT or anything like that. We need to look very deeply into the lifetime value that is created for customers and be creative about the pricing strategy, okay? Third problem, insufficient knowledge about valuation. Now, this is where entrepreneurs find it very difficult to have a level playing discussion with investors. In actual fact, so many times what happens is if an investor wants to put money into the business, the investor will impose the CFO into the business because the entrepreneur without the CFO, of course, yeah, is in a impaired situation with the entrepreneur. And how many times have I seen the investment agreement where the investor said, well, look, in order for me to invest, I need to monitor what you do, and you need to recruit a CFO, or we'll choose a CFO. So this is where education is really needed with financial intelligence, okay? So what's the goal of the program? Very simple. Number one, customer chasing you for your product. So by creating lifetime value creation with the intellectual property monetization, the customer will be attached to your product, okay? So the customer will call you for your bank account, say, I want to buy a product because I need it more and more and more. So again, it's about really creating lifetime value for the customer, okay? The second goal is obviously investors impatient to buy a business. Investor will want to buy a business because they see the value. They see that you got the right structure in place. They see that you're monetizing your IP, which is one of the first questions they ask. What do you own? Okay. So that question needs to be answered, and that question leads to higher valuation if it's answered correctly. The other thing is, the other goal is that the business, your business is a tool to enjoy your life, is not your life, okay? It's something that you should use. Initially, you work very hard for it, but then as you progress, obviously, you need to go through the different steps, okay? Okay, the solution in 3 steps. What are the 3 steps? The first step is monetize intellectual property. Second is succession planning, and third one is from local to global. Now, each one of these steps generally tend to occur, or should occur at least, in normal situation, in a different business phase. The monetization of the IP occurs during the startup phase. And the startup phase is where we are building our product, our MVP. So initially through concept. Now, we should not approach an investor until we have validated the concept and we are ready to do development, okay? Trying to approach an investor when the concept is not validated is asking for failure, effectively. You will not get it. You will not get an investor to buy from you. And this is where initially the initial phase is so tough, because you have to ensure that you get validation before you ask for more money through the development and through the deployment, okay? So how do you monetize IP? Obviously, you're creating the lifetime value here through concept and validation. You effectively create a solution that is in line with what the market wants. You don't want to create a solution that you're not sure the market wants, okay? So this is where the concept phase is built into the development, where during the development phase, there could be prototyping, there could be data collected, there could be initial, even initial early, very small prototype deployment with the customer as well. And after that, we go into full scale to deployment. Yeah. Give you an example in my career where the company was in the concept phase and he was asking for money to an investor without validation. What I found is that the concept, it was actually solar panel that were meant to decarbonize the shipping industry. What we find is that the concept was not completely validated, because there was no data collected on whether this would work at all or not. They were just assumption that it would work, but without the clear data collection. So prototype were not built, and then as a result of that, there was not even an opportunity to do any development. So they have to go back to the drawing board, and they stop asking money from an investor, really, because they have to really go through the development. Yeah. So monetization of IP occurs when the product is created and it does solve a problem. Yeah, it solves a problem for a customer, a lifetime, a long-term proposition, really. So after completed this phase to monetize IP, what we have is a product that is ready to go into the market. When the product goes into the market, the business should now scale up, okay? Because they start to sell, you start to rise the sales. It continues of the R&D in many situations. So during the succession planning phase, we can also call it creation of leadership. Yeah, this is where the business should absolutely do all it can to create leaders, and these leaders should be effectively doing, executing at least 3 main goals business, which we'll look at that later, really. Now, believe it or not, unfortunately, after the successful startup phase, too many businesses will fail on the scale-up phase, really. And that's obviously quite painful, because just imagine, you've done all the hard work. Why should you fail at this stage? And how does it happen? Well, it happens because of control-obsessed owners, maybe, most of the time. Yeah. And it happens also because of lack of discipline in managing cost, managing the expansion, sometimes hiring too fast, sometimes not hiring at all. Yeah, so those are situations where, for example, a product is launched but not fully launched. So spending before you got the proof, of the commercial success. Yeah. So after you have successfully scaled up your business nationally, should we say, yeah, it's time to go from local to global. Local to global is where you go to the next layer of the valuation, of the high valuation strategies. So local to global is usually associated with a late stage business or potentially even exit. I just put the exit picture here. So it's a business with track record of scaling up, as we can see. So the blue line for the sales is going up. The orange line for the cash flow is also going up. So we go preparation. In case of exit, of course, we go preparation. Then we go negotiation, and then we go execution. So going global will effectively ensure that the business has the highest possible valuation from startup to scale up and now to globalization. Okay, step one, monetize intellectual property. Let's just use some very, very easy language here. First, get passionate about the problem, okay? Not necessarily the solution, because this is where the business should be really engineering the solution, but not the solution it believes is going to solve a problem. Is the solution that resolve a real problem. So we need to really, think about who is actually going to benefit from us. We should think less about what we are inventing or we are creating. We should think a lot more about what it can do for the other business, okay? Create lifetime value creation. Again, very simple language here. Create lifetime value means, as we said before, we have found now a solution for a customer. I'll give you an example from my career. I had an hospital bed manufacturer. The technology was providing the customer is the hospital, with a real value, lifetime value. It was a technology to replace hip. So that technology was effectively saving the hospital 5 days of hospitalization because the patient would go home on the same day as the operation. Now, 5 days without hospitalization, so operation but hospitalization, has a value of about $5,000, let's say $1,000 per day, yeah. So each time the hospital bed is used is worth $5,000 to the customer. So me, as a business, should I not sell at least $500 per day or $500 for each time it's used, And that doesn't mean necessarily per day. It could mean, for example, let's say when you change the gloves, when you change the boots for the operation, you buy them from me at my price, and then plus, there are so many creative ways to actually monetize intellectual property here. So by creating lifetime value creation is where you create a product that the customer will want in the long term. And as a result of that, there will be recurring revenues. Just give you another example. Say you're a website designer, okay? And you create a solution for a customer, and that solution is fundamental in allowing the customer to sell more. You should not be selling the website as a product. You should be selling royalties for the revenues that it generates. So if the customer is generating $100,000 revenue thanks to your website design, well, you should be charging maybe $5,000 per month, 5% royalty, for example. Obviously, making sure that there are margins there, yeah. Because if there are no margins, there's no point, yeah. So if you're helping a customer selling through their website, you as a website designer should not just sell the website like that, okay? So you should actually be building recurring revenues, yeah. And effectively, what this means is you sacrifice the initial margin. You sacrifice because it's very little compared to the margin, to the lifetime margin, okay? Okay, now let's continue with step one, how to do it. Okay, there are different types. I think, the way to do it is, there are so many that it's difficult to list them all. But in a nutshell, this is about pricing strategies. So where effectively through your pricing, you determine a real monetization So obviously software businesses, they have it easy because they sell a license, the customer needs a software like Microsoft, yeah. So every time you sell a software, well, you use software every month, you have to pay a license. But Gillette is the same. Gillette has the razor and the blade. So every time you want to use the razor, you have to buy a blade, okay? So various type of partnership. Now, these are the simplest one. One of the simplest is the joint venture. It's a win-win situation, but there are so many, as we are seeing from day two. So the various type of partnership will allow really a unique product to be created. Think about Pfizer and biotech for the COVID-19 vaccine, for example, yeah. So that's a type of partnership that has created a unique product. The other ways are distribution. It's effectively the example like a supermarket like Walmart selling Kellogg's to the public. Or the same could be for music records, for example, yeah. Then we go licensing, which is the second most sophisticated type, where you licensing the sale to someone else, establishing obviously certain characteristics. In the program, we go very deep into that. Franchising is when you have effectively, you created a system, and that system will be cloned. In fact, it will be cloned to make a copy, and then you operate a franchising license, yeah. Now, in the program, you will see this is so sophisticated, because there are structure that you will see on the program. They're very, very large. Franchising, just to give you an idea, sometimes people say, okay, why are the banks so easy on lending money to franchising? That's very simple, because of the risk, 97% of franchisees declare themselves as profitable. So that's the opposite of a failure. Failure startup, it's almost like the opposite, upside down, So that's how to monetize intellectual property. Again, this is just a list, In the program, you'll find so much more. Step 2, succession planning. I took inspiration from a book I read many years ago called The E-Myth. The book was all about explaining how really a business should be dividing its souls into three main personality. So when you start a business, effectively, you are three people in one, okay? So you are the entrepreneur, you are the manager, you are the technician. You're doing everything on your own, okay? But you need to have all these three souls with you, because the entrepreneur is the dreamer, is the aspirational person, okay? The one who wants to develop. The manager is let's call it discipline, business management. So eventually this is what finance does, yeah? But initially, the entrepreneur has to be good also being a manager, okay? Because you can't just chase any opportunity. You know what Warren Buffett said? I say no to almost everything, and I am successful. So remember these words, yeah? Say no to almost everything, and you'll be successful, That's what the most successful people in the world tell us. Then the technician, because the business needs execution. So you also need somebody who can execute, yeah. Initially, you're all three of them as an entrepreneur. There's nothing you can do about that unless you are more than one person. So you go two founders, three founders, but make sure that you cover all these three souls, yeah. Okay, so what happens when you scale up and you need to really create a leadership team? Again, even here, I wanted to make it simple, absolutely very, very simple for you to understand what you as an entrepreneur should do when you scale up. I just made an example of a football team here. Again, if you like rugby, you can use rugby. If you like American football, you can use American football and so on. Whichever sports you like, yeah. So can you see this is a delegation? So it happens on the Olympic Games, Somebody's telling to someone else, now you continue for me. So effectively, the end that is releasing is the end of the entrepreneurs. The end that is collecting is the management team that is being recruited. Okay. What does it look like, the management team? Well, we got at least 3 roles, yeah, in a business. 3 roles, which is effectively three parts of a football team. One is the attack, one is the midfield, one is the defense. Okay, so this direction play. So who's the attacker? Well, the attacker is the commercial director, is the one who's going to sell, is the one who's going to score goals. Okay, you need that person. So as an entrepreneur, at some point, you need to let go. You need to allow someone else to really sell for you. While the midfielder is the operational manager and effectively is the one who's going to be effectively producing. So here it's about selling, here it's about producing. What can you sell if you don't produce? What can you produce if you do not sell? Okay. So this is why these two, they need to really communicate with each other a lot. Yeah. And then the defense. The defense is effectively the role played by finance and also legal as well. So this is where you don't let in too many goals. That's where you protect the business. Example, you're selling, you're producing, but you're not generating cash flow. You have to generate cash flow. Otherwise, you can't really do the right, achieve the right result. Yeah. So this is where finance will be helping the business to be correctly capitalized in terms of working capital, receivable, customers, in terms of really, for example, capital allocation, potentially the right utilization of cash. Say you want to expand the business, you need to maybe do an acquisition and so on. So yeah, this is where finance really sits. Now let's go from local to global. Okay. So we went through 2 steps now. The first one is IP monetization. The second one is really about the succession planning. So now we got track record. We've been successful selling our product. We've been successful generating cash flow. Now we can go global. Okay. So after establishing a strong local presence, we obviously have to do some exercise, some analysis about our presence in the market. Now you're all aware of this, you know SWOT and PESTLE. SWOT is strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. It's a matrix. PESTLE is political, environmental, social, technological, legal, economic. Yeah. So we need to analyze all these factors into us, because going global into another market requires obviously additional study for the business. Yeah. Now, most of the time, when we go global, all we have to do is to go back to step 1. So what is the best way to monetize our IP globally as opposed to nationally? Yeah. So that's why you see all these American businesses, when they go global, they tend to use the same method as they use in America. They try to use it in Europe as well. Yeah. And so this is where we need to learn effectively how to use them. Now, it may be that you're monetizing IP locally in a totally different way from globally. Again, this is open to question, because as I always said to you, this is not about a rule. It's about really, it's a situational case where, you need to understand which situation you're in. Don't expect a book to tell you what to do, or don't expect ChatGPT to tell you what to do. You just have to think. Don't forget that business is a countless sequence of trade-offs, okay? So trade-offs are really the order of the day. Part 2 is where you need to pay attention to the culture. So what's the culture like in the country in which I'm going to operate? Okay, so that's important. And the other thing is it better if I go global by doing an acquisition, by doing M&A or a merger? Yeah. It could be that in the market in which I want to operate, there's already potentially a strong competitor. It may be useful to think that, well, instead of fighting a competitor, maybe we should shake hands. Anything is obviously possible. The culture we saw above is all about understanding where you're going to go to. You need to study where you're going to sell your product. Yeah. And last but not least is risk management. Going global is obviously a risk for the business. I mean, a business starts with risks and lives with risk, okay? So risk management is absolutely necessary in any phase of the business. Startup, scale up, stagnation, crisis exit. Risk management is absolutely necessary, okay? Okay, and the last thing I wanted to tell you is about risk management. Obviously, we've been together for 3 days. I just wanted to show you really that, yes, we want to be successful in running our business. However, we also want to manage our risk because guess what? Remember this, any business will start with a risk. The risk will never be eliminated from business. So you have to calculate and you have to manage your risk all the time. Otherwise, look what's happened to the Titanic. Titanic is where the captain decided to go too fast. He ignored all the warnings. He ignored there were not enough lifeboats. What was the result? 1,500 lives lost. In a business, it's job losses. It could be, innovation loss as well. Job loss is obviously the worst case scenario. That the GDP obviously does not really benefit from a failure like this. Total loss. Yeah. Now, when you calculate and manage your risks, there are going to be failure, but the failures will be so small that you will be able to continue, and those failures will become very, very precious lesson. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed this last day. And let me also now tell you what you can do. Steps to take now. You can book your discovery call with my team. There are practically 10 seats left, out of which 2 have already been taken. So there are only 8 left, for this quarter. We don't know whether we're going to do another quarter as well, but that's something that we look at because obviously, there are various situations going on in general. And so, in general, it's difficult to say that there will be another opportunity. But this is your chance to book a discovery call with my team within the next 48, 72 hours. And you will discover so much more about the business, about the setup of the training, of the course. And what's the goal of this? As I said, the goal of this is to become a top business with a top recipe for success that will help you generate wealth for the future, of course. Now, I wanted to say thank you very much to everyone. Let me ask you if you got some question. Okay, we got another person who signed up for the discovery call. Thank you very much, Jamaica. Great news, So, feel free to book the discovery call. All the other ones, we got Jennifer, we got Simon, we got Dario, we got Alan. Thank you very much for coming, Alan. Thank you, Justin. So 1 out of 10, you give me 10. Thank you, Justin. That's great. And also you, Jennifer, that's fantastic, And Twisha, thank you so much. It's been great. Well, I'll put this on the other side. I hope you're going to join this program because it's really going to be transformational for your business. And I'll see you on the other side, hopefully. Thank you very much. Bye.